Hello, hello again. This is DeAndre White, and we're back. We are on video number 4, the genesis of fear, discussing where the fears that we currently have and the fears that currently exist in our life, where do they derive from? In the previous video, I spoke about my personal, not just my personal fears, but where they derive from. Watching various documentaries and horror films on movies about serial killers and about horror movie classics and even true crime documentaries that are on TV shows like A&E, True TV, and Investigation Discovery, and even TV shows like HLN. Now you know subconsciously these things are still imprinted in my mind despite never, well, not never, but not having watching these shows in quite some time. I want to say probably the last time I sat down and watched one of these shows from one of these networks might have been 2013, 2014. Now I'll tell you all this because I'm still residing with my grandparents. They still watch it, so I still hear the narrating voices and even the narrators' voices alone when watching these TV shows will fill you with suspense. And the suspense that they fill you with draws you in because although the TV shows are suspenseful, they're suspenseful in a way where they captivate your attention and maintain your attention and maintain your interest. But I told you all also, I talked about the type of seeds that are planted within us because as you water a seed, it grows, it grows, and it grows. And seeds grow effectively depending on the type of soil that they're planted in. And in most cases, the soil that most of us are in, we're in bad soil already because we're already negatively programmed because we live in a negative world. And if we continue to water those negative seeds with negative water, those seeds grow and they germinate like the trees grow and germinate like fruits on certain trees grow and germinate. And as a result of that, it's hard over the years because you find yourself, even when you're reprogramming yourself, there are certain weeds subconsciously that you have to find a way to chop down and pull out, and weeds are so deeply ingrained that you have to peel back multiple layers of your mind subconsciously just to make sure the weeds are pulled out altogether. And there are many, many, many techniques and strategies that we will get into that can help subconsciously uncover and peel back the layers of any self-sabotage behavior or any fear for the most part that has you stuck in a place or that's stopping you in the area of your life, and that area of your life, that fear that's stopping you in one area is making its way to other areas, and it's just minimizing and controlling your life altogether. Now let's get to the point. First and foremost, I told you all what my fears were. Now for those of you that are listening or that will be watching this video, you have to ask yourself, where did your fears begin? The fear that you currently have, why do you have that fear? Where did it start? Where it was the starting point? Where did it all begin? How did you feel at that very moment? Were you shook? Were you in suspense? Were you terrified? And if you were, what did it compel you to do? Did it compel you to go back even though you were interested, or even though, whatever the case may be, did this fear lead to you being embarrassed or ridiculed, or humiliated? What happened in the process, and how has that impacted you? But because here's the thing, in order for any problem of any kind to be solved, we have to go back to the starting point. We have to trace the issue back to its origin. That is how we get to the root of the problem, by going back to the beginning of it. So I'm here to ask you all the fears that you currently have or the fears that reside in your life, where did it all start? I tell you, my fear for driving also began. I said that not only consistently listening to car accidents, but also as a kid, my mom, and my siblings, we were in a minor car accident. It wasn't major, but it was minor. And I remember that this young man came and pulled us over and took us a few miles south to our hometown where my grandmother was staying at the time. And so that was, I can recall the only car accident I've ever been in my life. But I know people that have been in various car accidents. I know people personally who have passed away as a result of car accidents. And just, I'm not a speeder as a driver. I like to drive at a calm speed level. And the faster a car drives, the more anxious I become. But that's just where that fear derived from. And I also had a terrible experience with an uncle that I mentioned earlier in the last video, whom I was trying to learn how to drive from, and he just wasn't supportive. But I want to ask you all, and that's enough about me. I want you all to identify where, let's get back to the root. Where did whatever fears you have, where did they start? Who were there? Who was there? What happened? Who was involved? And how did it make you feel? Now, for the second thing is this, the next thing is this. The next thing is this. How long have you had this fear? Because the fear I had existed for 8 years. And that other fear lasted from the time I was like 10 up until I was like 21 or going on 22 years old. So a good 12 years for one fear and a good 8 years for another. Combine those experiences, and that's close to 2 decades of my life living in fear. And I'm not even 30 years old. I have one more year in my 20s, and I will strike at 30 in February of 2022. I want to ask you all, how long have you had this fear once again? How long has this fear resided in your life? How long have you been living with this thing that has made you uncomfortable? How long? And also ask yourself another question. How is this fear so aggravating that it is beginning to impact, that it's beginning to get to the point where, have you gotten comfortable? Has this fear existed in your life so long that you've gotten comfortable living with it? Hold on for a second. Hey, lower your voice now. So, ladies and gentlemen, I had to take care of something real quick. Have you all became comfortable living with this fear to the point where you've just accepted your circumstances as they are? Because for a long time, that's exactly what I did. And the truth of the matter is, most people that have these fears in their lives, rather than develop the courage and take life on by looking these fears in the face and challenging them, they decide to reside themselves to a life of regularity, thereby allowing these fears to take control and have their way with them in various areas of your life, in various areas of their lives. And rather than confront these fears, they will just stay in this comfort zone and try to live life as safely as possible with little to no interruptions. But when you do that, when any of us do that, we make life harder in the long run rather than easier. Because I knew this, but I had bought into the idea that, well, I'll just settle for less, or I'll just play it as safe as possible. What I've learned, especially in this year, 2020, in the heart of the coronavirus and the heart of a pandemic that has brought a government to its knees and that has shut down and neutralized our economy altogether. What I've learned that in times like this, the risk takers will advance, but the hesitators will unfortunately be left behind. And in times like this, if there's a dream you've had, if there's a vision you've had, if there's an ideal, you have to, I repeat, you have to take action and take action willingly, take action immediately, because otherwise nothing is going to change. Change in our lives does not occur until we take it upon ourselves to change. And one thing, one of my favorite speakers from afar who has made this transition, Jim Rohn once said, is that in order for things to change, we ourselves have to change. Now, how long have you had your fears? Well, the greater question is this: if these fears remain in your life as they are, how much longer will they stay? But more importantly, how how will your life look? Will you still be in the same place in 2030 as you are today as a result of still allowing these fears to dominate and to reside in your life and begin to move you around and bully you rather than you move fear around and bully it? Will you still be in the same place in 2025? Will you still have many of the same issues and challenges as a result of not confronting your fears? Where will you be? What will your life look like? What will you accomplish? What will you not accomplish as a result of how you address your fears, or if you choose not to address your fears at all? Where will you be in the next 3 to 5 years by not just having fears, but allowing fears to have you? It's one thing to capture, it's one thing to be captured by fear. No, it's one thing for you, it's one thing to be captured by fear. It's another thing to capture it. When you capture fear, fear no longer has power over you. But when fear captures you, it has all the power over you. Ask yourself, where will you be? What will your life look like? But how will that make you feel about yourself? Now, as we're about to conclude this video, we're coming down to the last point. Ask yourself, and this goes back to a question in the last video, what are some things that you are doing that are currently contributing to your fear? Are you watching certain movies? Are you watching certain scenes? Are you entertaining things that you see in the media? Are you allowing the media to program you based upon the stories they're telling from their standpoint and not necessarily the truth? Because it's one thing to tell the truth, it's another thing to get bits and pieces of what happened, small specimens and small percentages of what the truth is, to create a glamorous headlining story that's going to sell. It's one thing. Now, are you, what I will say is, are you are you feeding that fear like it's no tomorrow? What are you allowing? What are you allowing your? What are you allowing to be contributed to your fear? Because here's the thing: there's another scripture that says that faith comes by hearing. But just as faith comes by hearing, so does fear, depending on who or what you may be listening to. And the and if you feed your faith, ladies and gentlemen, which is the ultimate antidote to fear, when you feed your faith, you starve your fears. However, when you feed your fears, you starve your faith. Most of us, most people are starving their faith because they're consistently feeding their fears. And not only that, when you are allowing yourself, the fact that fear has programmed you to think a certain way, and you begin to start speaking and talking and believing according to the fearful thoughts that are parading around in your mind, like people that parade up and down streets and on major highways during major holidays. What happens is you begin to walk in that direction of where you're talking. There's many songs and many lyrics to many songs by many artists that says they walk it like they talk it. And that is very true, especially when it comes to anything, but also fear. When you begin to start talking in fear, you're also walking in fear. When you're telling yourself, I can't do it, or when you don't believe in yourself, when you're not willing to challenge those subconscious, those negative, minimizing, self imposed, limiting beliefs that fear has placed upon you, it begins to affect how you feel about yourself. It begins to start minimizing and degrading your self esteem. Then the emptiness that's within the abundance within you gets closed up, and the emptiness that's in you widens and opens. We're all is we're all put here to live in abundance. We are all put here to prosper. We are all born to win, but as time goes on, we are programmed to fail. We have to deprogram ourselves so that we can reprogram ourselves. Alvin Toffler, who wrote the book Future Shock, one of the quotes he said was that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who can't read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. We've learned how to live in fear. Now we have to unlearn how to live in fear so that we can relearn about fear in terms of how to use it as fuel to our fire so that we can develop and improve our faith. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my last closing phrase. That's my last closing phrase. That is what I'm going to conclude this video with. You all, we will come back with videos 5 and 6 tomorrow, and videos 5 and 6. In videos 5 and 6. Now, videos 6 and 7. In videos 6 and 7, we will be getting to the solution to these problems. My mistake. In videos 6 and 7, we will be answering the question, what action steps we can take to alleviate or even eradicate certain fears. You've heard about the problems, you've heard about the stories that create the problems, and you've heard about how the problem impacts and affects you long term, and or what can potentially be what would be an endangering predicament or experience if we allow these fears to reside for the rest of our lives. Now we're gonna go tap into the solutions that we can begin to implement and apply so that we can be on the other side of fear, because on the other side of fear awaits freedom for us all. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you tomorrow. This is DeAndre White signing out. Thank you. Peace.